Dragon Ball Legends has a lot riding on the 7th anniversary because people have never been more on the fence about this game than they are right now. And I actually believe Legends will deliver this year. They just dropped their massive update that over doubled the amount of RAM needed to run the game and are already doing as promised with balance changes that have been long overdue. So the next step is nailing the character choice for the 7th anniversary with unique abilities and characters people actually want to use, which we'll get to in just a moment. But first, we have to discuss the elephant in the room, the format. The current format we've been used to from the 6th anniversary and from Legends Fest 2024 is double LF in part 1, double LF in part 2, and finishing with an ultra. That part 3 step being the literal same since Legends Fest 2021. They haven't shaken up the part 3 aspect of the format in any of these big celebrations in basically 4 years. But I think this anniversary specifically is the one where we see the biggest shakeup to date, and that is multiple ultras. Now, I know this has been a long-running thing here on the channel. That's because I'm someone from Dokkan who took LRs, their highest rarity, their version of ultras, from free to play to summonable in like 6 months, and from being just plain summonable to this is the peak rarity in the game in like a year. So that's why I've been blabbing about a format change and seeing more ultras than usual for years now, because I'm really impressed with Legends taking this long to do so, given the fact that ultras have been in the game since March 2021, over 4 years that we've had this rarity. So my lock right now is that I think there will be 2 ultras involved in the 7th anniversary. And listen, I know how some of y'all feel about the idea of multiple ultras in the anniversary, and I'm not necessarily saying I want this. I've been predicting it for years because we're playing a gacha game. It just makes sense that this would be the natural progression of the system, and I think if done right, it can actually be good and fun and all these things. And ultras typically shake up the meta more than standard LF, so a couple ultras in the anniversary might be exactly what we need to get rid of Daima. Now, if there's going to be 2 ultras, which is my guess here, involved in the anniversary, I do think they will be split. Those of you suggesting this idea of 2 ultras at the same time in part 3, after what I'm presuming is double LF in part 1 and double LF in part 2, and then you want double ultra in part 3. Are you crazy? Why? Okay, listen, I don't want that. So here is my format breakdown. First up, part 1, ultra with an LF. I do think it is possible that we just get a solo ultra. And while I'm on record on Twitter saying that I think this is a possibility, it's not necessarily something that I want. I would obviously rather have multiple characters that we're summoning for. Using it adds in banner units. I also think this argument that ultras don't have banner units does not mean they can't introduce banner units with ultras. Again, with format changes, with this massive Legends 6.0 update that essentially feels like it could be heading towards a Legends basically 2 sort of feeling, I do believe that we could see multiple changes like side banner units on ultra banners, or the introduction of multiple ultras on ultra banners to add more value to the banners. I think all of that is very, very possible. So my part 1 very real prediction is that we're going to get an ultra with a Legends limited character. Now, obviously, I think that this is just the natural progression of these celebrations, is to introduce another ultra somewhere in them. But more specifically is the fact that right now in 2025, we've only ever had 1 ultra release. From January all the way to May, literally right now, 1 singular ultra, which is crazy, but not as crazy as you giving this video at least 1 singular like. Huh? Here's the thing, since we've had some little ultras in the game, specifically 2023 and 2024, we went into the anniversary with at least 2 ultras. In 2023, we had Hit and Rose going into the 5th anniversary. In 2024, we had Golden Frieza and Super Saiyan 2 Gohan going into the 6th anniversary. And now here we are in the 7th anniversary going into it with only 1 ultra, Perfect Cell. And so I think it's pretty obvious that somewhere an additional ultra is going to show up that typically we haven't seen before. So why not right here in part 1? Then part 2, I think they'll keep it pretty standard. I think it'll be a double LF. This is also, of course, when we're getting tons of Zenkais, and like that sort of middle section of the anniversary and these bigger celebrations is always a bit more up in the air. But I do think we'll keep the double LF format that we saw in both the 6th anniversary and Legends Fest 2024. And to finish things off in a part 3, this is where I think they shake up things the most. But we'll talk about that when we get the character selection for part 3. Now for our part 1 picks. I think as we go into this, it is important to remember the massive update. It over doubled the RAM available to them to use, and they literally were transparent enough to say, listen, we have to do this to improve upon the characters that we're trying to develop as part of a developer update. So to me, this means things like the possibilities of bigger, grander finishes, right? Like more even insane LFs and things we've seen before. This could include adding multiple characters to LFs, adding new environments. They've sort of done this a little bit with Trunk and Broly, but like, let's be real. Definitely when you think about all the LFs in the game, if you had environmental aspects to those LFs, it would add so much more. Like a Broly getting to bring in a rock to smash someone's face into, right? Like that's not something that's really in the game. He does that move, but there's no actual rocks that he's smashing their face into. So more environments, different environments, more characters, different characters, possibility of actually changing the environment like a domain, and the craziest one that I mentioned before in a prediction video, but the possibility of maybe some ground battles, something where you're able to actually hit characters down to the ground. That would add even more cool elements to Legends PvP system. So with all this in mind, let's start with the part 1 Ultra. Now we'll start with the most obvious, and it's the one that's on everyone's mind, and this is MUI Goku. I think he's here. It's so obvious. We've got the Golden Frieza from TOP. We now have a Zenkai buff for the TOP 18. It's like, who else are they doing from TOP? If you literally pull up Unirep and you look at all the characters, they are quite literally building to him. Now I saw this interesting pattern someone pointed out, and I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. It's a pattern in these games until it's not. The first anniversary LF was the 4th anniversary Ultra. The 2nd anniversary LF was the 5th anniversary Ultra. The 3rd anniversary LF was the 6th anniversary Ultra. And who was the main headlining character of the 4th anniversary? Oh, that's right. It was UI Goku. So yeah, I think he's here. Whether he's the part 3, he's the part 1, he shows up somewhere else. I will say, fun little fact, last year, the build up to the anniversary, the free-to-play character was Whis. He was actually a reference to a part 2 character. Because no, he's not the Whis from the Broly film. He specifically has the God of Destruction Beerus Saga tag. So he actually was a reference to that. So I do think that Universe Rep could show up multiple instances throughout the anniversary, and probably will, because it's a tag that needs a substantial amount of help. The literal last time until this Frieza that tag was touched was the previous UI Sign Goku. Obviously that was a tag that got buffed a ton in 2023, but then had no representation at all in 2024, and none up until this literal Frieza in 2025. So I do think just a singular Ultra is not going to be enough with some Zenkais. I think we will probably get at least an Ultra and possibly an LF from that tag specifically as we go through the 7th anniversary. So he's an obvious one. As far as what I think he would do, we talked about this in multiple dual summoning videos, trio, quads, whatever, but I think domains are coming to the game. You know, we saw Dokkan take the tag ability finally this year. It took them long enough to do that tag mechanic into Dokkan, which is something that Legends actually created. And these games take from each other all the time. And I think domains is a really cool sort of aspect, and having a UI Goku that has a domain expansion essentially, and I imagine it would either work as his main ability, or because I imagine it will be very strong, whether it's giving stat buffs to Unirep characters or to his entire team, or he's able to save characters. I don't know, whatever it might be, right? Because I'm thinking in terms of the tech Goku that we got last year in Dokkan, where he was just able to like counter people. It's like, that's just what he does. So whatever it ends up being, I imagine it will be involved somehow with that sort of active ability they introduced with Beast Gohan, and it would be a cool visual change to the entire environment that you would be fighting in. But enough about UI Goku, because we'll talk about him a bit more in a second. I do still have 2 more Ultra picks for part 1. First up, SSJ4 Goku, another tag that I do think they will not just let Lei abandon forever, which is GT. We also are due up for several Zenkais that could be available from GT. While I do think they could do those alongside Diamond units too, I'm never going to rule out GT somewhere. So Super Saiyan 4 Goku, I do think is due up for an Ultra, and I specifically think they could do something really cool with a Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and specifically with a Super Saiyan 4 Goku Ultra. Obviously his entrance into an Ultra could utilize his standing on the rock. That's something that's not really in the game, and having the ability again to bring in different environmental aspects could play into this character. But the big thing here would be playing into the fact that we could have multiple characters involved in these new characters and their animation. So this could be a Super Saiyan 4 Goku that in game actually transforms into full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku, using the ritual where they actually bring in all the characters together to power up Super Saiyan 4 Goku. This not only would be completely new from the fact of bringing in tons of characters for an animation in game, but also we don't have still to this day a transforming Ultra. And so more so than even just character picks, the things I'm truly expecting to see, whether it be in 7th anniversary or Legends Fest 2025, going to be tag mechanic within an Ultra, completely new mechanics that we can't even fathom now because they are utilizing a lot more of your device's power to actually create cool, more unique characters. Also transformable Ultras, because right now they do transform, it's just within their intro. They don't transform mid-game. There's no main ability transformation, none of that, right? So I do think through an active skill or a card or something, we could see a Super Saiyan 4 Goku that could go to a full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku. Really cool in-game animations that involve a lot of characters coming on screen to do something really cool, like powering up Super Saiyan 4 Goku. My final Ultra pick, and I just sort of hinted at it, but tag switch, we've talked about this before. I think they'll do a homage to the original tag mechanic when they do finally give us a tag Ultra, and that will be giving us Super Saiyan God from the Broly movie, because the Super Saiyan Blues were the original introduction of the tag mechanic. I think they like to be a bit cheeky with stuff like this. I think they do. I could be wrong. I think they love to do cool callbacks. So if we are in the middle of this part 1 reveals and stuff, or whatever, the part 1 info, whatever they want to call it now, I'm still calling it reveals and stuff, okay? And Blizzard starts playing, don't be surprised when it's because we're getting a new tag switch Super Saiyan God Goku and Vegeta. And the cool aspect I think they could do here with these guys, gonna piggyback off Dokkan here a little bit. Dokkan, for the 10th anniversary, introduced something they had never done before, which is tag switch mechanic inside Dokkan. But then they took it to an extra level that Legends has not done yet, and they actually gave each of the characters their own active ability, which is really cool, by the way. It does also mean more work whenever they introduce a tag switch mechanic in Dokkan, which would then also mean more work in Legends, since I'm yoinking that. But something we haven't seen, obviously, since Beast literally just got the active skill in Legends 6 months ago, we've not seen a tag switch character in Legends. They each side has this like quote unquote main ability, which is something they could do with an active ability. And I'm pitching out here, they could have Super Saiyan God Goku have his sort of like God impact where he could like stun a character, and then they could just give Vegeta like full on out, basically Beast Gohan level damage, and give him his like prominence flash, something of that nature. So can still give them a unique thing where it's like first ever Ultra tag unit. They also each have their own active ability. Like that could be a really cool introduction to our first ever part 1 Ultra, also being a part 1 Ultra tag switch unit. I just think it'd be a lot of callbacks to Legends Fest 2021, which I know a lot of you guys, myself included, really like. Now they'd be pairing this up with some kind of LF. Listen, bro, I'm gonna keep doing it until they finally do it. I cannot believe it's taken them this long, but bro, where is DBS Broly's new LF, man? He was a 2020 unit. Since then, Gogeta Blue has gotten 2 more premium units, an Ultra and then a fusing unit, and DBS Broly did get a Zenkai last year and he was pretty good, but like this character has not been touched in what is essentially 5 years. And so I'm just like, where? So why not here? So I'm throwing out an LF Broly. I think a lot of that stuff I already mentioned with like the cool animations of him actually dragging people, because I would almost guess he'd be transforming, because the last one wasn't transforming. So my guess is that they would, if they were going to bring him back and give him a new LF, give him some revamped animations, some new cool, more intricate animations, they could do a lot with him being transforming. So they could definitely give him some of those different animations, like slamming someone's head into a rock and there actually being like a cliffside there, like a wintry cliffside that pops in and actually, you know. Plus something about when I think about ground battles, Broly really comes to mind for that. I maybe it is specifically because of that animation that's just so crazy where it grabs Goku and does that to him, but like that animation specifically is what's kind of playing in my head when I'm thinking of ground battles. So I'm throwing out Legends Limited Broly as a part 1 unit. If not him, I keep seeing people bring up Vegito Blue, and I'm like, listen, man, I get it. Synchro Gauge was really cool. They've not touched it since the 6th anniversary. We just got a Vegito Blue unit in 2023 as an Ultra, and then again 6 months ago for Legends Fest. I just don't think they're bringing him back. I'll never count him out because it's Vegito and fusions and the Legends celebration. Have we had a singular Legend celebration ever without a fusion? Hang on. No, every single anniversary up until now has literally had a fusion involved. So I'm never going to roll out a fusion, but I think if they do go back to fusions in any way, it's either through tag Super Saiyan 4s or Super Gogeta. Now I think, to me, if you're going to do Super Gogeta specifically, I think you've got to really bring it. I think we already have a lot of really good animations for this unit specifically. So if you're bringing him back as a Legends Limited unit, I think the Goku and Vegeta side of it need to look incredible. I think they should also have maybe some extra abilities, kind of similar to what I just mentioned with the tags Super Saiyan Gods, where they each have their own active ability. I think you need a lot of stuff to really sell people on a Super Gogeta after already giving people the blue version of Gogeta. Because I think right now the general temperament is that the blue fusions are definitely a step above for most people, I think, than the Super Saiyan versions of them, specifically Gogeta. I think Super Vegito still got it. I think Super Gogeta has taken a bit of a back burner. And even in this game, right, we have just regular basic Super Gogetas in this game. I guess we have basic Super Vegitos too. But I think if you're coming back to this particular unit that you've not done in a year, that was already a part 1 unit from last year, it needs to have some extra sauce. It needs to do some extra things. So that's why my 2 picks are Super Saiyan 4 or Super Gogeta. I am leaning more towards Super Gogeta of those 2 specifically. I do think GT will show up somewhere this year in a pretty substantial way, because I don't think they'll let that tag completely rot. But if you actually look at the limited revival banner that is currently live in the game, the main poster childs of that are Uni Rep, and then movies. So I do think movies will be involved in one of these parts decently heavily, and so Super Gogeta would fit that a bit better than the Super Saiyan 4s. But again, Tag GT never counted out. So there you go, 3 picks for the Ultra in part 1, 3 picks for the LF in part 1. Now for part 2. Part 2 is always very tricky. They gave us this God Goku and an Ultimate Gohan for 6th anniversary, and then the part 2 of Fest last year was a Transforming Super Saiyan 3 Goku and a Daima Goku. So like, it could be Ultimate Gohan is just that was never on my radar. It could be literally anyone, but I did quantify it down into what I think could be 4 sort of themes here. First up, superhero. My reason for this is because one aspect I did not mention with this massive update is we might finally be able to have giant character. And there is a specific giant character that I think a lot of people would like to have, and that is Cell Max. Now, if they wanted to keep it fully themed in both, last year, both characters in neither of those celebrations, I guess they were semi-thematic, Sun Family. Ooh, man, Sun Family, that's a crazy theme to think of. But if we go back to just see, like even the 5th anniversary, the entire part 2 of the 5th anniversary was superhero. So I do think it could always be thematic. And so my picks here would be Orange Piccolo, who could also have a giant form and could sort of showcase off this new look. Because I think the 7th anniversary is going to be used to showcase off this is what the big update is. We are setting the precedence of what to expect moving forward with our game, because anniversaries are when new people are downloading the game, people are coming back to the game. This is where you want to show off the flashiness, the cool stuff, and showing off giant characters is cool, especially if it's handled properly. So Orange Piccolo could have a giant form, and then Cell Max could actually be playable in the game. These are 2 things that I think would impress a lot of people. Now, obviously, I can't mention Orange Piccolo without slightly mentioning game originals. I am not very hot on this topic anymore. If you guys have been watching my prediction videos, I don't really include them as much. I'm very much so just kind of skating over them a bit, because until they prove me wrong, we've not had one since Legends Fest 2023. Granted, I know that's only been 2 main celebrations since then, but they just haven't touched that at all since then. So I don't know if it is really hard to go through approval process to get more unique units besides base Goku and base Bardock put together, or if it just didn't do that well. I don't know what it is, but I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I will say the one that I do think is still possible is Orange Piccolo and Beast Gohan. We've had a Beast Gohan in every calendar year since 2022, so that's why it's here, but I would prefer it to be a standalone Orange Piccolo. Right now, the only way you can play as Orange Piccolo is through a revival. I'd rather just have a full-on Orange Piccolo in the game that does not need to be revived, doesn't need to transform, just straight up, and not attached to Beast Gohan either. If you had to make me choose, I'm choosing the one that is fully standalone without a Beast Gohan. But they love Beast Gohan so much, they're the creators of the literal moment that Dokkan pulled from and used, that I know a lot of people like, Dimps, who made Xenoverse, who also make Legends. So that's why I'm not going to count it out, but I would prefer it just be Orange Piccolo and Cell Max. The other is Daima, and I don't think we need any more Daima units right now. Daima is so crazy, but also Daima is the new thing. And unlike Dokkan, Legends actually is hey guys, here's a lot of Daima characters. And the Dokkan community is very adamant that they do not want Daima characters this year. It's very weird. Back in Dragon Ball Super, nobody acted like that. What I will say is it is the new thing. They obviously really like this tag, so I'm not going to count it out. And there are 2 characters that I think could utilize maybe some new aspects of things, and that is Goma, who obviously can get huge if they decide to go the giant character route, and Mini Super Saiyan 4 Goku. These are 2 obviously huge omissions right now from the Daima cast. Also Mini SSJ 3, but I think he could be a monthly LF later in the year. And Mini SSJ 4 could do a multitude of things. It could be a transforming Mini SSJ 3 into SSJ 4 with a new style of a revival mechanic, or a new style of a transformation mechanic, and that character honestly, that character, am I crazy for saying that the mini version has a bit more sauce than the adult version? Because I really like the Kamehameha that the mini version does, and him like actually running and stuff. I think there's just a lot of cool stuff they could do animation wise with mini Super Saiyan 4 to really show off, you know, this whole new sort of like new era of Legends. So I do think those two characters could show up. I think any of these picks could be combined with the other picks. That's why I wanted to mention how they wonky picks were last year for Fest and Anniversary. Even though I'm pairing these guys up in actual sort of like tags, I also think you could mix and match any of these as well. Next up, fusions. If Super Gogeta hasn't shown up, I do think he could still be somewhere, which is like right here. But beyond him, Kefla, who actually is representation for fusions and Unirep. So this would also be a buff to the Unirep tag while also being a buff to fusions. But I think a lot of people are really interested in having either a standalone Legends Limited Kefla or of course a Synchro Gauge. Bring this back finally. I do think we will see Synchro Gauge somewhere, whether it be used for a fusion or maybe something we've not ever seen before. I think Synchro Gauge will be involved with the anniversary because they haven't brought it back since last anniversary. So somewhere in the anniversary, I do think we will see it. And a Kellan Khalifa that fused into Kefla could be here. I've seen people say she's not anniversary worthy. I think anyone is part 2 anniversary worthy. I'm just going to be on record to say that. I think that anybody could show up in part 2. No disrespect to Ultimate Gohan, but he just like, to me, like of all the Gohan forms, he's definitely somewhere in the middle. I feel like, I don't know, if he can show up, I think anybody can. Then we got the universe rep. I think this could be the time to finally do a transforming Super Saiyan Blue evolution Vegeta. This is a character that has not been touched in a very long time. He doesn't have an ultra, which is what I would love to see, but even as an LF, we haven't seen him since 2021. We know they like to redo LFs and maybe in more unique ways, and so I do think this is one that we could see specifically. Of course, as I already mentioned, some form of a Kefla. And I will say it, I've saw many people say he's not anniversary worthy. I don't know that I totally agree. He's the person that fought UI Goku. So Jiren, I do think Jiren could show up somewhere. The last time we got a Jiren was a sidebanner unit to Goku and Frieza. And so whether they wanted to do it as transforming similar to that sidebanner unit or standalone and him do something completely new that he didn't do in his other Legends Limited version, I definitely would not count out a Jiren somewhere in this year for sure. And before we get to part 3, I wanted to call out one more thing. Obviously, I think we're all thinking it. The icon is literally Ultra Namek Goku. I definitely do think we see our first ever Ultra Zenkai here. They've been doing these equips for all the summonable versions, but they have not actually done a Zenkai yet for one of these characters. I think it would be huge. I think one of the aspects that I really want them to focus on with the 7th anniversary is offering a lot of cool stuff with, you know, the free-to-play side of things. Shallot hasn't gotten a new form in 2 years. They haven't done anything with Shallot, which I really hope they will finally make playable during the 7th anniversary. We haven't gotten a free-to-play Ultra since Omega Shenron in 2021. We actually got one of our only 3 free-to-play Ultras during the 3rd anniversary. So I really do think we could see some pretty substantial free-to-play stuff here. And so a Zenkai Awakening for the first ever Ultra, I think should be here. And I think will. I think that's why he's the icon of the game right now. So just wanted to call out, I really hope we see a lot of cool free-to-play stuff. Before I call out probably one of the most egregious things they could do, I know a lot of you guys are scared of, that's a part 3 Ultra LF, a Legends Limited Ultra. Listen, dude, as I mentioned earlier in the video, a nice little callback to Dokkan, but Dokkan introduced a free-to-play LR in the middle of 2016. They introduced their first ever summonable LR as a shadow drop, hidden down like a 0.00 something% chance to pull a Super Saiyan 2 Gohan during the 2nd anniversary of the game. It was only about 6 months later. And you fast forward 1 year after that, and we already had what is the peak of summonable like units in the game in Dokkan, which is Dokkan Fest Ultras. That is the literal exact same thing as what a Legends Limited Ultra would be. Right now in Legends, all we have, if you are a Dokkan head at all, is basically gold coin LRs. That's all Ultras are. Ultras are the most basic version of their rarity, essentially. So they've not applied any fancy thing. You know, in Dokkan, we have Carnival LRs and Dokkan Fest LRs now, but Dokkan Fest LRs are still like sort of the peak. They are what you would consider like a Legends Limited Ultra. And Legends has not done that, which has really impressed me. I'm super impressed. Again, as I just called out, like we got introduced to what would be the equivalent of Legends Limited Ultras in Dokkan 7.5 years ago. So like, it's impressive that Ultras have been in this game for over 4 years and we still don't have that in this game. So my guess is if they're going to introduce it, I have 3 actual picks here. MUI Goku is not part 1. I think he will be part 1 because I think they're going to make him the face of the like celebration personally. That's why I do think LF Broly could show up. That's why I do think like LF Tag Super Gogeta could show up. I think those characters could be faces of celebrations, but I think if you are going to choose either MUI Goku or it's MUI Goku, man. UI Goku is what broke the internet, right? That's what crashed Crunchyroll. Like he is the still, I think, besides the blue fusions, like the peak of everything. Like they use him everywhere. He was the Sparking Zero cover. He was Battle Hour 2025's like poster child. Like UI Goku is still probably the biggest single character in the entire franchise in terms of like just getting people's interest. It's a silver white-haired Goku, man. Like, come on. And I do think they could use him and give him the first ever Ultra LF. Really cool intro into MUI Goku. Really cool, like crazy revamped animations. I still think that red UI Goku's LF looks incredible, but I think you add environmental assets, you add things we can't even fathom right now to what they can do with animations, with, you know, doubling the ability of assets they can have available to them to pull in. You know, that's just all RAM is, just all the quickly available assets they have available to pull in for these animations. I think we can't even fathom what an Ultra LF UI Goku with these new requirements for the game could look like. He could potentially be the finisher to the celebration and this huge iconic debut of what is a new rarity Legends Limited, you know, Ultra. For my second pick, and it would be a true callback if you're an OG and you know the history of this game. Even though technically Beerus is the first Legends Limited character, the first ever LF in the game was actually Gohan. They had to add Beerus's LF later. I don't know what they were doing there. So Gohan is the first ever truly Legends Limited unit in the game, a Legends Limited Sparking. What if, as a callback, because it is a super iconic moment, a moment that they've not touched in over 6 years, is a callback into revamp and redo with all these like new crazy assets, new animations, Ultra LF Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. That is probably my very real pick and something I want to see. I know too many Gohans. Gohans are always toxic. Freaking Rat Han is still more than runnable in this meta, which is crazy for how old he is, but like them nailing that father-son come on my animation in this game and giving us like a fully 6-year renewed reworked animation of it, beautiful. For my last singular pick, and I've used him in every section so far. Yeah, dude, I don't know. I have this weird feeling that I do kind of agree with the community that he could be somewhere very soon. And the callback here is that he's the first ever summonable Ultra. So they debuted summonable Ultras after giving us 3 free-to-play ones throughout 2021 with Super Gogeta. So it was a cool callback. Also make him a tag character. Also give him a bunch of cool, unique abilities, and then give him the first ever Ultra finisher. Because I do think they might change it too. I think they might end up calling Ultra LF or Legends Limited Ultras. Their finishers could be Ultra finishes. And I also want to say one final note to this. If you've never watched me talk about one of these, which you probably have because I've talked about them a lot, but I do think they could introduce the ink art animation in game as well, which I think would be a very sick aspect to have, like ink art flowing around the character and flowing around the moves and stuff. That could be a really cool aspect that really sets these guys apart from standard LFs and from standard Ultras as well. And so I know these last two have been what I consider callbacks, but I think the other thing too is you have to think that the characters that they're going to utilize here in the anniversary and they're going to utilize to do like Ultra LFs or to do first ever Ultra this or to be a part of an anniversary, you kind of have this history of the game where you can kind of see who they thought was worthy of it in the first place, right? They thought Super Saiyan 2 Gohan was worthy enough to be the first ever legendary finish in the game. That means something. They thought Super Gogeta was worthy enough to be the first ever summonable Ultra in the game. That means something. And so I think that they still have that data on the back and they still understand that these are very hype picks that people are incredibly interested in summoning for, and could also be really cool callbacks for those that have been around for the, you know, with the game for many years. I don't know about you guys, but like as someone who feels like a semi-historian of these games, I love to keep up with them and have that knowledge available to be like, yeah, that was 2019 or that was 2020. It would mean a lot to me specifically if they did do a really cool callback and did one of these characters I mentioned here. Now, there is one final thing that must be mentioned in a 7th anniversary prediction video, and that's that every piece of marketing for this anniversary has included the 7 Dragon Balls in a green hue. It is most certainly giving me Dokkan 8th anniversary vibes, where we actually got a standby unit that would go into the final Spirit Bomb of the entire Dragon Ball Z series, which the current logo with the Dragon Balls would most certainly relate back to. And someone who had a really good idea for what they they could do with this was slay. He came up with an incredible idea for the first ever Ultra LF character in the game, being a sort of much grander and revamped version of the SSJ3 Spirit Bomb Goku that we currently have in the game. And so obviously it is the 7th anniversary, 7 Dragon Balls. The number 7 means a lot in general, so it could just be the general marketing, but typically these things do mean something. So whether it be in part 1, part 2, or part 3, I would not be surprised for it to be related back to Shinron or Purunga or both, and for a revamped final Spirit Bomb of Dragon Ball Z moment to show up somewhere in one of these parts would not surprise me at all. But no matter what they do, I have full faith that they're going to nail this anniversary with this massive update and everything else going on. I think Legends 7th Anniversary will be great. And I also think this video right here will be great when you click on it and check it out for more Dragon Ball Legends. Subscribe if you want to be here for all the 7th Anniversary content. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it and watched it this far into the video, hearing me yap about Legends stuff. And yeah, have a great day. Keep on keeping on. Nanogenix off, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.